Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy Nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, it's Jennifer Rogers Markwell with the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. Today we're joined by Kelsey Smith, who is the founder of Momma Has Goals. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, well, tell us more about yourself, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Yeah, so I found myself in January of 2020 waking up in the emergency room. I had just had surgery a whole year after my first son was born and really sat with the question when I woke up, if I hadn't made it through that, what story would I have left behind? And after a year of self-discovery, defining what I wanted that to look like, I knew I wanted to bring resources to women, current or aspiring moms, whether it was for their own identity or their journey alongside motherhood. So Momma Has Goals was born, and now we have a phone app, a great online community, in-person events, and so much more. And I'm just so passionate about women knowing that they can build a life alongside motherhood. You know, what I found through my journey of really what story do I want to leave behind and what do I stand for and what do I want my kids to say and know about me is I didn't really know myself. And so I had to dig into that for myself. And then when I went to find those resources, it's hard to find things on Google. You know, you go down a rabbit hole and you don't know if you can trust the resource and is there even a real person behind that? So I wanted to be able to bring real women doing really cool things to a platform that allowed women to easily find what they needed to become their best version of themselves. And I, really prioritize family in my life. So I wanted that to be alongside whatever you're building in your home. I think sometimes we think we're alone in life and whatever journey we're on, whether it's a personal journey, a financial journey, any of those things, and you're not. There's a lot of people that are going through similar things or have been through something similar, but it's hard to kind of find them sometimes. So just finding the right platform or network or community to really tie you to whatever you need.
And not all your friends know everything that you need, right? Not everyone can point you in that direction from their own circle. So
yeah, one of my favorite quotes and analogies is I've heard before is people say you need the person behind you to keep you like humbled and grounded and know what you've already accomplished, the person beside you to know that you're not alone, and the person in front of you to show you where to go. And we're often missing one of those circles. And it doesn't mean that you get rid of the people behind you or beside you. You don't burn those bridges. I don't subscribe to that unless they're really toxic in your life. But you allow them to be there, but you have to seek out those people above you as well.
So talking kind of about relationships, we like to talk about money memories and how it really kind of mold you as an adult in your relationship with money. We chatted before and you had quite a plethora of very unique stories. What are some that you're open to sharing about your money memories?
Yeah, and I think like that those three buckets are a great way to think about that actually. The people that, come from one part of my journey and then the people alongside of me and the people I learned from now. And, I grew up in a very loving home. My parents are amazing people, but they weren't the best with their finances. And with that though, growing up, I didn't know that. So my first money memory was actually a positive financial memory where I was cleaning my room and my dad came in and he picked up the garbage bag that I had cleaned my room with and he heard all this change fall in it and was furious. He was like, "Did you throw money away?" I was like, "Yeah, it was just like pennies and dimes. It was just coins." And he was like, "Coins add up to dollars and dollars and coins are both money." And he's like, "You have to go back through this garbage bag and find every coin and I want you to put them in this bucket or this bowl." And at the time, I had a little bit of an attitude about it, didn't understand. And I was a pretty smart kid, so I'm kind of surprised that I couldn't like consciously grasp this, but I just couldn't. It was just like I wasn't at that point with my money and my finances. And so we went through, I pulled all the coins out, and then my dad take them to Coinstar and put them in and turn them into cash, and like explained the process to me. And that was a foundational memory in the sense that money is every, form of money is important. It doesn't matter how big or how little, to really value things. But on the flip side of that, I have a lot of money memories that we didn't really talk about finances because we didn't have a lot of it. So I didn't learn how to use a credit card or how to be financially responsible beyond that. I, got myself to work in a taxi and made my own bills since 15 in many ways, helped support my parents in various ways, and was also living a very nice lifestyle. So it was kind of the duality of that. So I think my money memories are duality. They're looking at, valuing what you have at the small amounts, but also allowing yourself to work hard for other things. What I didn't learn enough of was the techniques, the tactics. So I shared with you, my husband and I read Secrets of the Millionaire Mind this year. And in that, it talks about like, what are your, memories of money, and what are the things that have been said throughout your childhood about this? And his was very different than mine. And mine was, I was like, I don't have any negative. I don't have any positive. We just didn't talk about it much because we didn't have it. And so that's definitely something that's come up for me, is reevaluating, other than that one memory of knowing that those coins were worth something. There wasn't a ton of conversation around it. My memories built from what I needed to do to make the money, and then how I spent it and utilized it.
You had told me a story about like your husband and like when just how supportive he was early on in your relationship before he was even a husband, right? So would you mind sharing that? Because I think that is just, that showcases a lot, not only like that unconditional love, but really, just embracing you.
Yeah. So after counting my coins very young, I went through school, high school, graduated, and my freshman year of college, I navigated being in college out of state, but working 3 jobs to pay my way through school. And I was really busy with that, with a full-time school load, and I couldn't really afford much. I would sell some of my clothes on Craigslist to make rent, and I was navigating finances with not a lot of concept on what that looked like or what to do. And one day, my friend at the time, who's now my husband, was like, "Don't you have class coming up? Shouldn't you be going to school?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I can't afford gas to get to school." I drove a Tahoe at the time, which, yes, took a lot of gas, but that's the car that I was given. That's what I could afford to take on. And that's what made sense. And he was like, "Well, where are your keys?" He was like, "Let me go check your gas tank." And I was like, "Okay, it's empty." So I hand him my keys, and he takes my car. He goes and checks it. I don't think much of it. And he comes back, throws me my keys, and says, "Your tank's full. I filled it up for you. You need to go to school." And that was, while it's not a big money story, it did, for one, show me that people that want to make money work, because it wasn't like he just had a bunch of money either. He was like, "This is important, and you need to invest in yourself, and you need to find that money to do that rather than using that money somewhere else." So filled my car up, and I went to school, and that friendship evolved into a relationship, and now a marriage and multiple businesses together. But it was a really core foundation of our relationship and friendship was, hey, we work hard for money, but also let's find a way together to make it that we don't work as hard and that we make it fun.
Yeah, really utilizing money as a tool, but, unconditionally saying, prioritizing what's important. What do you need to do?
Yeah.
Another thing that you shared too is building businesses with your husband, right? So starting out and busting it and working all these different jobs and doing different things, and then kind of evolving to where you're now overlapping businesses together and family businesses.
Yeah. And so I think, we were just talking to a friend that has been in a relationship for a couple years and just found out that their partner has a lot of student debt. And so they're navigating that and working through it. And we were talking to them, and we said, the way we choose to build our friendship and our relationship and the way we did is just being super honest. And I think if you're going to build a business or a life together, you have to be willing to be vulnerable enough about the decisions that you have made or do make or will make for you to be on the same team and the same page to be able to do those things together. And I think me starting with not being able to put gas in my car and working 3 jobs for the beginning of our relationship allowed us to have that really vulnerable relationship around money and finances from the get-go to be able to build multiple businesses and investments and things together. And, everything's relative to, your scale. But for us, we were pretty proud of what we created at the age that we had. And so that navigated from us graduating in college, making some decisions like to move in together earlier to save on rent and finances, which, only if that's right for your relationship. We bought a car together pretty young before we were married. We navigated different finances in different ways and have made different choices that benefit our dream and our vision. And that's what we always bring it back to is what are we building for? What are we working towards? So that transpired into us wanting to buy a house. And we really were looking for just kind of like a normal house. But long story short, we ended up in an investment property with our family, which is now a 30-acre vineyard producing grapes and the wine industry. And it's been super fun. He's also a partner in our family's construction company. And then I have my own 2 businesses, which we share together as well.
So clearly lots of things going on, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like with entrepreneurs, that's a thing. And that's kind of how folks gravitate to one another and attract one another too. So for your kids are seeing this, which is fantastic. You're being role models and showcasing this. How, and this is kind of an odd question, but right, we didn't grow up learning this. We didn't grow up seeing this per se in our own households. How are you going to kind of share financial messages with your kids? Have you already started planting some seeds there?
Yeah. So my oldest is almost 4, so they're pretty young, but this is a conversation that we have often because one of our actually biggest fears growing the wealth that we desire and the businesses that we desire is it's a lot easier to not make your kids work for it, if you will. And I believe that a lot of my character was built from having to pay my way through school and working multiple jobs and things like that. So it's actually a conversation that we have often trying to figure out what does that look like? And the biggest thing that has been key for us in learning how to navigate that is mentorship and learning from people that have navigated other things so that we can have conversations and say, what are some of the things that you do to implement things for your kids? One of the things we've learned a lot about is how you can utilize having your kids work for you and also how you can help them grow their own businesses and do their own things. And it's just about understanding the possibilities are probably out there, even if you don't know what they are. So as of right now, I think that we will do things very differently for our kids financially. And that'll start with right now, my son has a piggy bank that he can see through. I actually really recommend that because a lot of piggy banks, you can't see the money in it. And we love that he can see the money that's in there. And we talk about what that money is used for and what savings is and putting that away because he's so little. That's the only way he can grasp that concept.
Yeah.
And then we just for Halloween, we went to a pumpkin patch and we had to buy like the food to feed the animals at the petting zoo. And we have him buy the food for the petting zoo and understand that there's like a transaction. That's where he can mentally process things at this point. So those are the types of things we do at this point. Moving forward, we will talk about work and how people earn money and what that looks like and savings and how you choose to invest your time or your money and your energy. And those are different types of investments. And that comes back to you in different ways. I think for parents, one of the best things you can do for just like the general parent, whether you're a business owner or not, is explain credit cards to your children and loans and taxes.
Yes.
Like those 3 categories are the most important, in my opinion, for any family to discuss and understand. And if you don't, your kids don't have to learn it from you. Watch a YouTube video, listen to the podcast like this one, or anything else to be able to help them grasp those 3 buckets. And it's okay if you don't know. I think so many parents are worried if they don't have the answer that their kids are maybe going to look down on them or something. And that's not the case. I think as a good parent, you should say, you know what, I'm actually not an expert in that category, but let me help you find someone that is because this is important for your success. So as a parent, you can co-sign your kid's credit card. You can also get them a student or child credit card at a young age and teach them to pay that off constantly.
Every month.
Yep. Every single month, pay it off. You can even teach them to pay it off when they get home on their Like they don't even have to wait till the end of the month
That's true.
to like pay it down. And I know parents that use their kids' credit card for them. Like their kids don't even have access to it, but they're building the credit for their kids behind the scenes using that. So building your kids' credit at a young age and allowing them to have a positive credit score. Don't do it if you're not good with money yourself, but that's like one of the biggest things you can do. And then helping them understand the process of taxes and employment and what that looks like from whether they're going to be the business owner or they're going to be the employee either way. So those are kind of the bigger buckets we're focusing on. There are like smaller things when it comes to like ways that you can just leverage your money and your assets for you and your family better that we try to learn as much as we can. But I'm not an expert on that, but I just think utilizing there's so much information out in the world, like allowing yourself to just find a resource that can teach you that.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think kind of going back to your thought on credit cards, that's one conversation when we start talking about infidelities that comes up, like credit card spending, overspending, not understanding it, like going to college and signing up for 15 credit cards because you got a bag of Cheetos or whatever it was, right? Or got a free t-shirt, like something like that.
Yep.
I think having that, the debt, because we talk about getting out of debt instead of having that debt on your shoulders and heavy, like get it off your plate. But I think teaching that young, that's where a lot of people miss it because there was no education and they're like, oh, it's free money. No, that is not free money there.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads into the conversation about infidelities.
Yeah.
Infidelities definably can be different for everyone. It could be massive credit card debt that, you are not being truthful with yourself about. It could be utilizing money for someone else on the side, whatever that looks like, right? Definably different for anyone. What does that look like for you? What are some experiences or things that you've seen or experienced yourself?
Yeah, and like you said, this is different for everyone. And the first time you made me think of it, I thought of it something different, like just kind of like bigger and like the really bad that can happen with money, because that exists too. But when I sat with that question and I think about it a little bit more again, as you ask it to me right now, is really just the little things that we don't keep promises to ourselves each day. And really the infidelities or the lack of promise that you're keeping to yourself financially, whether it's going to Starbucks too many times or not allowing yourself to make an investment. And really, I think it comes back again to the knowledge piece is so many people, sit in not knowing how to make more money or save more money, and they just choose to stay there. And so for me, where that really started is, I was so fixated on getting out of school, hitting kind of check boxes, buying the house, getting married, having kids, having a great job, having a 401k. But I didn't have knowledge of what was available outside of that and really how to expand my ability to make my money work for me. I didn't understand that concept. So the infidelity to me was to myself of not allowing myself to dream bigger. And after my surgery with my son, I woke up and was kind of like, what is next for me? And one of the realizations I had was no matter how hard I worked in my job, no matter how many hours I put in, I was working well over full time at that point. I was really putting in my top effort. And I knew there was a cap in that salary amount. And for me, that was like an infidelity to myself financially of not allowing myself to expand, looking for expansion. That doesn't mean you have to just quit your job and start a big business. It's definitely easier to bring in multiple streams of income if you're an entrepreneur, but you can do it otherwise. And so when I go back, I think, okay, how can you learn more? Because if you're not doing those things, I think you're indirectly creating a financial infidelity for yourself. And it's obviously different in each season. So I think about, when I was younger, my financial infidelity would be going and buying sushi and champagne at a very young age rather than, paying off the rest of my student debt or whatever I needed to do. It maybe was making just poor choices about not putting gas in my car. I spent multiple weeks and months selling things on Craigslist to pay my rent. And some people would look at that and be like, oh, that's admirable. Well, the fact that I had so many clothes to be able to sell on Craigslist for so many months is maybe questionable as well, going backwards that way. So just looking at how you're spending your money, how you're allowing yourself to be authentic and true to your financial journey and bringing that back to your vision of what that looks like. When we bought our property, I was, about 24 years old, I think. And we had so many people that told us, like, you're way too young to buy this big of a property. Like, you're putting yourself in debt, all these things. Well, we've now learned how to make that investment truly an investment. It now profits money or it's not quite profiting, but it brings in revenue. It's an investment at that point. And so that was the next season of like, people convinced me I was making a financial infidelity, even if I wasn't. And then the third season now is, I quit my job at the beginning of this year and invested in myself and started a business. And we're now living in an Airbnb with our family and traveling. And we did this for a season of time and we'll go back. And I think, your financial choices may be infidelities to someone else, but you just have to know what is right for you and your family and bringing it back to making sure that you have the right network and knowledge and you've done your homework and you've put things together. And there's a balance between trusting in yourself and experiences and allowing yourself to truly live and also setting yourself up for life in the future as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to put it because you're right. When it comes to seasons, it depends on where you are at in that moment, where you are age-wise, what's around you, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, what your knowledge is or not, quite frankly, right?
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap things up, one thing I always like to ask are what are tips or tricks that you utilize in your household to, save money or use money as a tool differently?
Yeah. And again, I think that's like the seasons, right? So I definitely went through a season of life where I was selling old clothes on, Facebook Marketplace or old things on there. That's something that you can do. You can think about the type of food that you're buying and being smart with things that way. Truly right now, we just are really clear with our priorities financially. So I, was talking with someone today. We don't give a lot of gifts in our home. It's just something that doesn't really align with our vision. We would much rather go on an experience or a trip down the road rather than buy a bunch of things that are going to create clutter and stress in my home that I'm really not going to love. So that would probably be my biggest tip at this point is like, just be really clear with what your priorities are. And you may be spending more time or saving for something to have a larger expense in the future, but the little things add up and quality over quantity, no matter what you're spending money on, whether it's experiences, food, that's like more for an experience, not actually fueling your body, but allowing yourself to really sit with, okay, who do I want to show up with? Who do I want to show up as every day? And how are my money choices providing what I need for that vision? And it could be buying gifts. It could be how you're, buying what car you have, or just the different choices that you're making. It amazes me how much money can go away, how quickly, if you don't sit and look at what that is.
And really using it as a tool, right? Like truly using it as a tool with those priorities. So no, Kelsey, thank you so much. And thank you for making time to chat with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And we hope that you'll join us again on the next episode of Platinum Talks Wealth.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.